you made me think about Tolkien and the Lord of the Rings, and how you've got both Frodo and Samwise Gamgee returning from this conflict of trying to bring the ring, right, to Mount, Doom and destroy it. And at one point, and this again stuck with me when I reread it about 2 or 3 years ago now, was just what made Samwise able to come back home and rejoin civilization was his complete and utter belief in the home, in the structure that's there. And you might even say, I mean, we could certainly talk about how both of them are going to have certain problems, right? Because you had just mentioned that can also lead to potential distortions as well, because the home, of course, is never the same completely when you come back. But it's such a strong thing for him to have to believe it when he's away, that there is a home and that I am still a part of it and that I need to be there. Whereas with Frodo, of course, he comes back, he's forever changed by his experience, and he just basically flat out says, this home is not here for me anymore. And both of them you have to be so careful about when you're talking about real problems, right? You never want, there are a lot of veterans, I would assume, who come home feeling like Frodo and say, this home was not preserved for me anymore. And we have to help them and tell them, no. There is a home here for you. Absolutely. And you are very much a part of it, but also helping those who want to keep that image, like Sam, to say, don't expect it to be exactly the same, but understand that you do still want to believe that there's a structure there of support and love and whatnot. And it's just, I hadn't thought about it again until both of you just mentioned it, but it's very strong to me. Absolutely.
Well,
I could see the fight.
can I add something? Can
Please,
I
of
add something
course.
to what you're
Yes.
saying? So for Frodo, I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan. And Tolkien as the great classicist and all that. So of course I would love the Lord of the Rings. However, what I wanted to say is that for Frodo also he's come away with a measure of shame over his behavior.
Yes.
He wasn't able to resist the power of the ring.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, that feeling of shame, one of the things, Bridget, and you've experienced this, we as the community that needs to welcome the veteran home again, we have to make space for them to be able to grapple with that shame, because that was something that they took on our behalf. All right. They are totally set up to be like, you're going to defend this, that, and the third about the United States. And so when the veteran returns, because there's probably been some shameful acts that will have occurred, uh, depending on how the veteran responds to that, they may need more help from the
Mm-hmm.
community. Frodo got no help when he went home. There wasn't somebody saying, let's have a giant party to welcome you back. He just sort of kind of slid into things, still with this degree of shame embedded in his personality. So I'm not surprised that he found it really hard to stay at home, where Samwise didn't have to struggle with that. So similarly, we could look at that as something called a moral injury, as a play out of a moral injury. So at our VA in Philadelphia, the Christians VA Medical Center, we have a moral injury group that is really working hard to not only help the veteran understand like their service, but to encourage the community to take upon itself a real ceremony that enables that veteran to return to the community, to not be divested of the shame, but to certainly have that shame or the acts that they witnessed or perpetrated or whatever, to have those things be in a perspective.
And yeah, if I
And
could just throw something in,
yeah, go
and I've
ahead.
taken part in one of these ceremonies, and they're
Sure.
incredible. It was a really powerful, moving experience. And I think that this involvement of civilians in these ceremonies speaks to one of the most important differences between the ancient world and the modern world, which is that in the ancient world,
Mhm.
every man of a certain age participated in the military. It pervaded the society, and everyone was involved in war. And we now live in such a different society where we kind of outsource that to a very small proportion of the population. And we send those people to do things in our name that we don't always own. And so I think a program like that is really important. And dialogues like the ones that we have in Eternal Soldier between people who have served and people who haven't are really, really important.
Want to hear the full episode? Then use the links provided to subscribe or follow the Neutral Ground podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Together, we're bringing back civility to meaningful discourse, one person at a time. Join us on the Neutral Ground.